everyone's ready, I'll go ahead and begin. What could make a man stop speaking for 17 years? John Francis was an outspoken environmental activist who argued with people all the time. These angry dialogues weighed on him. So one day he decided to take a break. He stopped talking, and he didn't speak again for 17 years. As our judges, I imagine you have done a lot of listening at this tournament. The pressure of having to pay attention to every word can be exhausting. But today I want to show you how valuable it is, how adopting the practice of listening to understand can transform your life and expand your impact. I first heard John Francis's story from his TED Talk. John Francis began his vow of silence because he hated the constant disagreements. Yet over his years of not speaking, he became a different person. The angry, argumentative voice he once used had disappeared. When he began speaking again, he described his transformation this way. What I used to do when I thought I was listening was I would listen just enough to hear what people had to say and think that I knew what they were going to say, and so I stopped listening. And in my mind, I just kind of raced ahead and thought of what I was going to say while they were still finishing up. Well, that just ended communication. This is exactly what I experienced when I took my own day of silence about a year ago. I was inspired by the book No Talking by Andrew Clements, which tells the fictional story of a 6th grade boy who decides to stop speaking for a day and ends up transforming his whole school. I was so intrigued by the idea that I tried it myself. And that's when I first got interested in the idea of listening to understand other people, rather than just to respond to them. In my own day of silence, my family saw the play, The Secret Garden. I did not enjoy it nearly as much as my sister did. On the long car ride home, she told me all the reasons she loved it. And since I couldn't respond, I had to listen. And it was different. I understood better why she was saying what she was. I saw her point of view. This experience sparked a transformative time in my life. I became a better listener. Maybe a better sister. This concept of listening to understand can be seen very clearly in a debate round. When my opponent is presenting a speech, I am listening to respond to them. The judge, however, is listening to understand. It is this kind of listening that changed my relationship with my sister that day. It's only this kind of listening that can truly change our minds and our lives. But listening to understand can do even more. It can help us change the world. One good listener who made a huge impact on the world was Mahatma Gandhi. According to his collected works, Gandhi regularly practiced not speaking for a day at a time. In fact, he's often quoted as saying, "Speak only if it improves upon the silence." But what does improve upon the silence? I learned that the balance between speaking and silence can be a delicate one. In any discussion group, there are 3 types of people. The people who talk, the people who don't want to talk, and the people who want to talk but rarely get the chance. In my weekly literature discussion group, I realized that I was the kind of person who talked a lot. So for my next discussion, I tried giving someone else a chance first. When our leader asked a question, I held my tongue until someone else gave an answer. Then I decided whether my answer was still helpful before giving it. I still got my thoughts in, and so did they. And this practice gave me more than a balanced discussion. It taught me that I wasn't the only one with good ideas. Philippians 2:3 says, "In humility, value others above yourselves." That includes valuing the words of other people above our own. But listening doesn't only help people on a personal level. It is an essential component of charity. Ernesto Cerulli is a sustainable development expert who worked for 7 years on charity projects in Africa. Every project he worked on Those 7 years failed. I heard him recount his story in his TED Talk. Cerulli's first project was to teach the people of the village in Zambia to grow tomatoes and zucchini. Although the villagers were disinterested in the project, the vegetables grew to extraordinary proportions in the fertile African earth. However, before harvest, about 200 hippos emerged from the river nearby and ate every last vegetable. The villagers were unsurprised when the workers asked them why they had not told them that 200 hippos lived nearby. They responded, "You never asked." Tony realized that if he didn't ask and then listen to what people say they need, he could never help them. He invented a system called enterprise facilitation, a system of charity rooted in the concept of listening. When his team arrives at a community, they sit down with people in the community and ask what they need. And they listen. That way they can do what really needs to get done and not make mistakes as disastrous as the hippo incident. Cerulli learned the hard way why asking questions should always come first. I was lucky enough to have someone demonstrate this for me. My grandpa Joe was a yarn salesman from Dalton, Georgia. And as a salesman, it was important for people to like and trust him. He said that his biggest secret for making friends was asking questions and listening to the answers. When Grandpa listened to a customer, he made more than a sale. He made an impact. He made a friend. John Francis, Gandhi, Ernesto Cerulli, and my grandpa. They all made an impact by becoming better listeners. But how did they get there? And how can you? The first path to listening more is talking less. In James 1:19, the apostle tells us to be quick to listen and slow to speak. I'm not asking you to stop speaking for 17 years or even for a day. I'm just asking you to talk a little bit less in order to listen a little bit more. John Francis's silence taught him how to listen to understand. It taught him how to learn from people he disagreed with. And his story taught me how to give someone else a chance to speak. Second, you can become a better listener by asking questions. Cerulli's method of charity is built on asking questions. This helps him concentrate on what people really need instead of just how we want to help them. Asking questions in your daily life turns the conversation away from you and focuses on somebody else. I learned this from the example of my grandpa and from my dad, who always makes me feel like he is genuinely interested in what I have to say. And even if you're the kind of person who doesn't really want to talk, you can still improve your listening. Listen to understand those around you. Listen to make an impact. But let me tell you about the impact you have already made. By listening to me today, you have given me the gift of a fair consideration of my thoughts. You have given me, and so many others at this tournament, the chance to try out our beliefs. Given us a platform to share them with the world. If you can make such a huge impact at one tournament, imagine the impact you can make if you listened like this every day. Thank you.